friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
And I'm Shireen.
And this week we are continuing with our romance bandwagon. Are we so excited?
Choo-choo!
Which we kicked off last week for the beginning of February with After from 2019. Oh, what a ride that whole entire series is. I can't even just say the one movie. I have to say all of it.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at it all together because, you know, just the one movie does not explain the whole entity.
Yeah,
that is
it doesn't explain the whole character
Yeah.
particularly. If you guys haven't listened to that episode, just go listen to it because the lead, especially the male protagonist's story arc, Hardin, makes much more sense. The more you get into it, the more like exposition and backstory you have for him that you don't have in the first movie that you're like, what's wrong with this guy?
What's wrong with this person?
Why is he so angry all the time?
Yeah.
Jesus. But I guess keeping on the same wavelength to a certain extent, this week I love that we wanted to do this so much too.
You did research and you wrote a whole ass essay.
I wrote a whole essay. In this essay, I will. We decided when we were chatting about this, we decided that we wanted to talk about toxic tropes in romance novels and sort of what a lot of the tropes are, first of all, where they come from, and kind of have a specific focus on a couple of ones that we think are worse than a lot of the others. You know, you have like your general tropes in romance that you're like, whatever. This is cute. This can be nice. This can be fun. Like we both read romance like a few times a year at least, kind of thing.
Everybody does.
Yeah, and a lot of stories.
Not everybody.
No, okay, fine. But a lot of stories that people read have a romantic element to them, like a romantic subplot, at least.
There's
of some sort.
We are humans. We love love.
As far as I know, and I don't know if this is if the statistics are different now, but as far as I know, to this day, basically, the best-selling genre of fiction is always romance is number one, mystery is number two.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they're like the two most like human,
Yes.
Like mystery often when there's no like fantasy element to it. It's often through like vengeance or anger or something.
Things that people human beings can relate to. So I think that does make sense. And I think with romance as well, so many people experience romantic ups and downs throughout the course of their lives that I think it's really easy for people to relate to the idea of a romantic relationship because so many people experience them.
Of course.
So it makes sense. So what we wanted to do today was just kind of have a chat about all of that. So this should be interesting.
And we should probably kind of start this off by saying that we are not professionals in like psychiatry or psychology or anything to do with like, the human psyche or anything. Like we are not professionals in this realm. We're just having a chat. And also we feel so strongly about this. I don't know. I don't want to call it a subgenre. I don't choose toxic romance.
No.
But
toxic romance subgenre. It could be its own subgenre.
It absolutely could be, but we don't classify it as such. But, I think we just feel so strongly about this because it's so prominent in a lot of books and
very mainstream.
Very mainstream. And I think the fact that there's been some sort of resurgence of it is just very mind-boggling at this point.
Yes, because I think that, you used to think, when we were young especially, you used to think of romantic tropes and things and very sort of very regularly done, almost cliched types of things. You used to think of that in your Harlequin romance specifically. That was things you were always oh, my mom reads that.
Yeah.
Oh, my grandmother reads those. Oh, my aunt reads those things. And it was all the same cover of a very chiseled looking man embracing a woman in some sort of corset attire that's half falling off a shoulder kind of thing. And that was, they had a billowy shirt on and stuff. And that was sort of what you would see before. But that's not the case anymore because you see that in a lot of modern stuff. And I think what bothers us the most is that a lot of this is directed at a younger demographic.
I think that's what it is. I think if this were all aimed, 50 Shades of Grey, for example.
Yes.
I can't hate on 50 Shades of Grey too much.
I mean, I can because it's horrible.
Right, but not for the same reasons.
No.
I can't hate on it for some of the toxicity because it's not aimed at a vulnerable
at underage people. Yeah.
Yeah, underage, vulnerable in the sense that you can influence them, certain information might affect them more than other pieces of information.
Yeah.
And like, I certainly think that if it's so common and so what's the word, like alluring to read about toxic romance, you might not realize what's so toxic about it and how it is having an effect on you.
Yes, for sure. Just to give, I guess, an overview kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about a trope. We're talking about a theme or a dynamic that's often seen in romance stories. So I have like a whole list of kind of like really regular ones that we see. Yeah. I'd say probably one of the top ones and one of the most popular ones that even I like too, if it's done well, is enemies to lovers.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Any time where it's like, if you have a really good, really snappy dynamic between two characters who dislike each other for whatever reason at the beginning of the story, by the end of the story have fallen in love with each other, that can be really fun because there's like a conflict there that needs to be resolved throughout the course of the story. You see this in so many stories.
Absolutely. And
every young adult fantasy is like an enemies to lovers at the same time. Like all of them.
I mean, a lot of, absolutely. And
like a lot.
Like a lot. And like, I think this isn't, inherently toxic as a trope. It gets toxic when one of them has done something really horrible and you can't accept why the other person is forgiving them.
Yes, 100%.
After, when Hardin, in the book, when Hardin takes the sheets on which he and Tessa had sex for the first time she bled on, and he goes and he shows all of his friends.
That's so gross. I can't even believe that. When you told me that, I was like, you've got to be kidding. Like, so, somebody wrote that and put it in a book and was like, and he's still the sexy one. Like, what?
And we've got 4 more books about how amazing he is. Like, this is, or
3 more books, I guess. Yeah. Absurd. So enemies to lovers is a big one. Yeah. A love triangle is something that comes up a lot. You've usually got another guy who like, you're another person, whatever, in the relationship who like comes in, who is either already there or shows up and creates conflict again between your two leads who are the ones who are, falling in love with one another, experiencing that like change or shift in their relationship depending on what the situation was. So that's another one that you see semi-regular. That's like your Twilight shit. You start off with your Bella and Edward and then you throw your Jacob into the mix to make it spicy,
Right. Yes. Where Twilight gets toxic is like within the nature of both of those relationships.
Oh, both of them are terrible.
Are not healthy.
No.
And so that's where your love triangle becomes problematic when one or both of those relationships is not healthy.
Absolutely. Another one, this is one that I really don't like this one. This trope I find is like I don't even know how to describe it. It's basically a trope about like a power dynamic. So like a boss and an employee or a teacher and a student, Gabriel's Inferno. That I really struggle with that one because for me, as soon as and you see this in real life, like these things happen. Yeah. Whenever there's like a power dynamic between the two between the two people involved, if one of them like sort of outranks the other in like a professional status or something, ooh, I hate it so much. And they try to make it sexy and it's not.
Yeah. And like, that's not to say that in real life, like I've met people in the past who, they met because one of them was a professor and the other one was a student. And, they waited until they no longer had that dynamic in place before they got together, like we're not saying that it's impossible to have a relationship or like a romance that's real based on that type of dynamic. But it's the way that it gets portrayed in a lot of, especially mainstream, like romance novels and movies is really unhealthy.
Oh yeah, it's not good.
And it also takes like the good-natured side of that type of relationship. Like if it is like a genuine, we will wait until we're no longer together.
And it makes it something negative. Weird. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Pretty Little Liars.
Yes, exactly.
Arya and what's his fucking face there?
Ezra,
thank you. That's one that seems cute when you're young and you watch it and you rewatch it and you're like, oh boy. No. Oh no. Don't like that.
That was weird. I mean, they got married and everything.
Yeah, that was very
he was
strange.
Her teacher for like a long time.
I know. Okay. Wow. Moving on.
We digress.
The next one would be mistaken identity. This one definitely happens when you have, the ones where one party thinks that the other one is someone that they're not. And then the party who was like sort of who is the mistaken person, they don't tell the original person about it until the end, and that usually causes a rift, which is also usually fixed before the end of the story.
You know, the only thing that's coming to mind here is She's the Man.
Oh my God, you're so funny. That's Shakespeare.
Yes, I know. It's is it Twelfth Night?
Yes.
Or The Tempest.
No, that's not The Tempest.
No, okay, Twelfth Night.
No, it's Twelfth Night because it's Viola and the Duke.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Yes, okay.
Viola
so
poses as a man, right? Or is it her brother? Sebastian's still her brother in the play as well, isn't he? Yeah, she poses as her brother in order to basically, like, you know, be like seen as a man.
Yeah.
And the Duke doesn't find out until, you know, the end. Basically, it causes a rift, but of course the rift is fixed and everybody gets married at the end because it's a comedy.
Aren't they like in the early years of college?
Yes, no, they're in high school.
Oh, they're in high school.
Yeah, they're at like a private school or something. Whatever, it's fine.
But they don't get married in the movie.
No, I'm talking about in Twelfth Night. Shrine.
Oh, right, sorry.
I'm not talking about Channing Tatum and Amanda Bynes anymore.
That's actually a great movie.
It's fun. That was like peak Amanda Bynes. Anyway,
that was peak that and What a Girl Wants.
Oh my God, those movies. Oh man, being a teenager in the early 2000s, you got some treats. Let me tell you.
Really did.
Amanda Bynes, Lindsay Lohan before she was the way she is now.
Before Amanda Bynes was the way she is now.
Oh yeah, that one makes me sad too.
Yeah, Britney Spears.
Yeah, that's it. All these people in like their heyday. Anyway, okay. So mistaken identity is one, and I find this one sort of goes hand in hand with enemies to lovers. Often is forced proximity. That's a big one. People who, like, you see this a lot in young adult, like, oh, we have to work together on a school project, but we're really annoyed with each other, but we're forced to work together.
Oh, like one of them's like, ew, that's like a nerd. And that's
yeah, or whatever. Like, whatever. Or we hate each other. We're academic rivals, but we have to work together kind of thing, and then we wind up falling in love with each other.
What examples do we have of this?
Oh, God, I feel like there are probably a ton, and I can't think of a book off the top of my head.
Never Have I Ever? That show is coming to mind. Like,
oh, because of, yeah, that's true. The other kid there, Ben.
Yeah. She's always like a school rival.
Yes. Well, anybody, like, that happens in a lot of different stuff. But yeah, I'm sure someone's going to yell at us and be like, it's in this book. Anyway.
We cannot think of one right now.
I'm sorry. I don't have any concrete examples. But forced proximity, I find, is another one. But it's also one that comes along with the enemies to lovers often. Because oftentimes it's forced proximity with someone that you don't like.
It's true.
Or that you think you don't like.
That you think you don't like. I think that's the difference, though, between forced proximity and enemies to lovers.
Yes.
Because forced proximity, like, they think they don't like each other, or they're just completely, like, neutral towards the other person. Whereas enemies to lovers, although there can be, like, a rivalry in the other one.
There's an overlap, anyway. Yeah. After that, I would say there's forbidden love.
Everyone's favorite.
Which is that Romeo and Juliet-ish, basically, you know, with just like, whoa, our families hate each other and we can't be together, but we're going to sneak around about it and stuff like that. That can happen, that's it, in any story that involves families that don't get along, friend groups that don't get along with each other. I find young adult fantasy does that a lot because they're from opposing kingdoms or species or whatever that is.
Like in The Hobbit, when they chose to have the elf fall in love with the dwarf.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
Yeah,
that height difference would be complicated. Anyway, and I only say that because like there's a big difference.
Well, in Tolkien's lore, I think there's quite a big difference in height. Right?
There must be.
Yeah.
Oh well. So that's another one. And not one that you're seeing as often now, but I do find that the fantasy genre still does that.
And I find that this one comes in waves. Like, I think that if there's, like, we're kind of gearing up for another good one soon. Like, if there's a good one that comes out soon, it's gonna trigger like the genre again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, if there's another Twilight-esque thing, just because to a certain extent Twilight's got that forbidden love thing, human vampire.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Well, all roads lead back to Twilight.
God, it's exhausting how many times we've ever brought Twilight up. If we went back up and made like a super cut of like all the times that we've said something about Twilight at some point in all of these episodes, we'd have like an hour-long show.
Well, I credit the Twilight shit posting group on Facebook for a lot of, keeping Twilight top of mind.
Yeah, there you go. Another one that I think kind of has become a thing in more recent years is the trope of like fake dating or like fake marriage, you know?
There's been a lot of
there's
that.
There's been so many of those.
So
in
that's
like
what I
the
mean.
full romance genre,
Yeah.
it's very much like my ex is with like a new person kind of thing and I need to make them jealous. So here I'm going to date you or fake date you.
Yeah.
But of course, fake dating turns to real feelings, turns to real relationship.
Well, like Kissing Booth was that, wasn't it? No, wrong one.
No, that was a forbidden love one, that one, because it was dating the older brother of your best friend. So.
Which was the one where they pretended to be dating? The one that came out kind of at the same time as Kissing Booth. The one with Lara Jean.
Yes, To All the Boys
Yeah,
I've Loved
that's
Before.
it.
There's your fake dating trope right there. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, Noah Centineo does that a lot. He plays that person a lot. He was in another movie.
Oh, he did
on
another Netflix movie as well where he was like a fake date for people
Yeah.
too. Yeah, you're right. I don't remember what it was called, but I do remember that movie.
It was actually not bad.
It was okay. Yes, exactly. That one I find you're seeing that a lot.
Yeah.
In like more modern ones. And I'm talking like in full romance as well. That's becoming more and more of a thing.
Well, like this is what I mean, right? Like if there was another forbidden love story that came out soon, I feel like it would kind of top that one that we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
The fake dating. And it would kind of put us on a different path of like types of stories and movies that are coming out.
Because I mean,
again,
like
you
even
know?
like the fake dating thing, I mean, Christ, like they do that. That's the first half of the first season of Bridgerton.
Right.
They pretend, Daphne and Simon pretend that they're
There's
courting
been a
one
lot of that
another
on
and all that
Netflix.
jazz, you know, until they, you know, have to accidentally get married and then develop real feelings for one another, that kind of thing. There's been a ton of them. There's so many.
I feel like this one is toxic to the other people who are involved in the story. Like, it's kind of cruel to do and, like, mess with other people's emotions.
Yeah.
So I think that that's where the toxicity of this, like, romance trope comes in.
Yes, I agree. And then the last one that I have here is the idea of the trope of, like, second chance romance. So...
Yeah, that's kind of emerging, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and that's like your Notebook kind of thing.
Oh, okay, then that's not emerging.
Well, no, but I mean, when I'm thinking
comment.
of like an example that I can think of, like to me, like The Notebook comes to mind because it's like they're together when they're young and then they spend years apart. And then it's like a second chance at love later on when they come back together.
Like with the same person, or do you just mean in general?
No, with the same person. The same person.
Because there is also like that subgenre of like it's our second time getting married and like a second love in life.
Yeah, and like we had a thing when we were teenagers, and then we both went our separate ways, and now we've both moved back to our same small town, and now it's time to make it work, kind of thing.
Right, but like even the stories that are not where they met when they were younger either.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of slowly starting.
Emerging,
It's slowly becoming okay for people to be getting married for a second time in media.
Right.
Yeah.
God forbid.
Oh, God. Yeah,
But
how terrible.
No, but we all love a second chance romance. Like, come on. Where, like, they were together.
They're cute. If they were together when they were kids and then they had to
yeah.
split for whatever reason, they come back, you're like, oh, that's nice.
You're like,
I hope that works
yay.
out for them.
I hope they're happy.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's sort of like an overview of like a bunch that I feel make themselves known pretty regularly, like in romance novels and stuff. Like those are sort of like a lot of the main ones that you see now. I guess it's like a weird segue, but I guess what we want, like to delve into like a sub trope kind of sub of these things is talking about specifically, this can be in any of them. I think this can be in any of these major like tropes and stuff like that, but something that happens in a lot of these stories now, and I'm thinking of like anything that comes after fucking Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, 365 Days, Gabriel's Inferno, like all of
like the hard sex sub trope.
No, not that.
Oh.
I'm talking about specifically in these stories, the romanticization of trauma for the male lead.
Yeah, After was one of them
as well. Yeah, like just like off the top, fucking like Kissing Booth, although I don't know why that motherfucker's angry all the time. He has a really nice house.
He's so cute.
I feel like poor guy. He's been so typecast now because of Kissing Booth and Euphoria.
Okay, but like, whoa, like they're kind of extreme differences there.
Well, yes and no, but anyway, and just the fact that I don't know what this is. in a lot of these romance stories, and this has happened also because we watched like a whole bunch of movies on Passion Flicks, you and I, and this happens so fucking often that your male lead is like traumatized because of something in his past. Because he's dark and broody, it's because he has a dark and broody past. Something happened to him as a child or in a previous relationship, and it's rampant. I feel like it's everywhere, and it's like, honestly, like it's I just don't like that it's treated in a way that's almost glorified.
I agree.
You know, where it's just like, oh, it's, you know, like this makes sense now, and I've explained this man's entire character simply because he went through something traumatic as a younger person, as though someone would automatically behave like this just because they experienced trauma as a younger person. Like, that's not true. So like it's used as an excuse for the man, or I should say maybe the more like traditionally male, masculine identifying character in the story to be like, it's almost used as an excuse for them to be domineering or controlling or expecting, like almost to an abusive extent in a lot of cases.
For the, you know, the other person's attitude to be that, oh, well, this person's had trauma and so it's okay for them to
because it's used as an
display
excuse.
all of these emotions and behaviors, and like they never actually get to the root cause and actually try and like fix the root cause problem.
Yes.
They keep like using the love story or the sex as a way of like justifying or making the behavior better.
Yes, exactly. To like de-escalate this issue basically. And so instead of them being like, oh, you know, we should do something like get you some help for your mental health so that you can work through these issues, that's not what happens. What happens is that then it's treated so that only the more traditionally feminine or female identifying character in the story has to save their love interest, you know, often through sexual means, but also
sacrificing a lot of
sacrificing a lot of their own traits because they need to fix this other person when like you don't have to fix another person.
And that like becomes the entire identity, like the broken one and then the fixer.
Oh, I need to save them, and so I need to save them myself. Also, I don't need to encourage them to do anything, like seek treatment or help for this or to work through their issues on their own, depending on the circumstance and everything. You know, there is none of that. It's just, okay, well, I will stay with you and I will fix it. Like, you can't.
No, and I feel like this is like an extreme romanticization of a real life situation.
Yes.
Like, I feel like in real life, the person would, you know, the person who needs the therapy would eventually realize themselves that this is not working.
Yeah.
Like, I have something missing, and so I need to go and fix myself first. So I feel like that realization would eventually happen.
Yeah.
B, the person who's the savior would eventually say, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And walk away. Or C, it would be like this never-ending, extremely abusive relationship.
Yes, which would just go on for eons, basically, which would be awful. I hate,
But I feel like the romance would die very quickly.
Yeah, I can imagine that it would be exhausting to be with a partner who is constantly destructive and reminding you that they're destructive because of this past issue that they have. You yourself can't do anything to fix that issue.
No.
But these stories, these novels portray it as though you can, as though the other person in the relationship can fix it simply by being in a relationship with them.
And I understand that this stems from that trope that kind of goes both ways, right? Like the damsel in distress, the one person who's in distress.
Yes, yeah.
And there being a one person in the world who can save you.
Yeah, it's always Prince Charming.
Who can make you better, right? And so like in this case, it's almost flipped where instead of, you know, the man saving the woman.
Yeah,
like
up in the tower or
the
whatever. She's saving the man from his inner demons as opposed to like a dragon.
Right, like an outer demon or an external force. So I can see how this became mainstream.
You can see how we got here.
I can see how we got here. I just think we should probably stop it somewhere because, like, it keeps going.
There should definitely be more advocating for fixing yourself from the inside out in a lot of these stories. And sometimes there is. And it's not like every single romance novel is garbage because they you know, they don't all do stuff like this. In fact, a lot of modern romance is very focused on this. We're sort of like, yeah, okay, I need to go see someone. I need to, you know, fix myself before I'm, you know, or be okay with myself before I'm with anyone else, which is fine.
To be fair, that's what happens in the After series. Like, eventually, like, she's like, no, I can't fix you. And he's like, okay, Tessa, I'm going to go to therapy.
And you're like, Jesus, it took you 3 books to get here.
It took them 4 books to get there.
Oh, so long. But why did we have to read? But I guess what concerns me is that, like, a few books in, you're already... like, especially a younger audience is already sucked into the love story of it all.
The romance.
So they're not paying attention to the good choices being made by the characters.
Because it happens very late in the story, you know?
That's it. So that's unfortunate, I find. And I find, so something that I find often happens with this sort of fetishization of male trauma. God, that sounds terrible. But I feel like that's kind of what it is. They've turned it into like a kink. Yeah, in a lot of cases, anyway. I find something that comes along with this because this character becomes often, like I said, aggressive, domineering, you know, almost basically abusive, like over the other person. Yeah. What happens in tandem with that most of the time, because nobody wants to read about the other character just being like subservient and being like, oh, okay, oh, I'm so sorry, is that they have this weird little additive that they put in there of they have the character act like bratty in contrast. Like, this is something fucking 365 Days does so much.
Oh, yeah, they really go overboard with this one.
So in that, like, you know, what's her face, Laura, is kidnapped by Massimo. Kidnapped because he's decided that he needs her to fall in love with him.
Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, it's terrible. With no good libraries either. No talking.
There's a sex library.
No talking candelabras. Like, nothing fucking fun to counteract any of it. Anyway, you know, she's kidnapped and held against her will, supposedly, for apparently the period of a year. But after an initial, I don't know, 5-minute like fight against this, there are no other scenes of this character trying to escape, like legitimately escape.
Yeah, like I genuinely thought that like when she told him she loved him, that she was like trying to trick him.
And she was gonna like slash his throat and run away.
Yeah, like run away. Like I'm like, this has to like take longer than this.
Oh, for sure. So it's like, you know, but she kind of puts up a fight for about a minute and then just sort of deals with it. Yep. And then gets bratty in what she does with things, where she just like is kind of a bitch to him and she teases him and does stuff. And I'm also like, why are you trying to provoke this person? They kidnapped you.
Yes. Like, it makes no sense. And she's like trying to like provoke him in like a sexual way.
Yeah, don't like, provoke your fucking
that would
kidnapper.
Be the last thing that I would do.
So
like,
much.
I don't even think it would be the last thing. I just don't think it would ever happen.
So much. So it's like they put up a fight, but it never feels like a real fight.
Yeah.
You know? And it does in stories like that. I find that it becomes really toxic too, especially when it's used in that like steamy, like, oh, sexy, oh, teasing kind of way where you're like, ooh, no. Like, it's one thing. If people want to role play like in the bedroom and everybody is consenting, like,
that's fine.
Man,
like,
do what you want to do. No one cares. That's totally fine. I think that's fine.
But isn't
if you're
done in like a
this is a story in
way.
which a woman is kidnapped against her will.
Yep. But then it happens again in another one of these movies. Like, what is it? The third one where she gets kidnapped by Nacho.
Oh yeah, Nacho. Oh, the stupid.
And then she has sex with him, and then she starts to fall in love with him.
Yeah, she totally fucks him at one point too.
Does this chick just really have really bad Stockholm syndrome, like regardless of who?
Yeah, no matter who the kidnapper is, she automatically falls in love with him. But that's terrible, because what is that telling an audience? Like, oh yeah, you're definitely gonna fall in love with this person. Also,
you better hope you get kidnapped in your life. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, seriously, I don't think that I've ever heard or read a story or heard a podcast or anything in my entire life about a woman being kidnapped by a sexy Italian mob boss and then falling in love with him and marrying him. I don't know about you, but I can't say that I have.
I don't know. Wasn't The Godfather about that?
Somebody get kidnapped in The Godfather?
I don't know.
Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. Why are you asking? You haven't even seen them.
You're right. I thought that Al Pacino's wife was like a little bit under duress for a lot of those.
I think she might be. It's been a really long time. I'm sorry. I don't remember very well. Oh, man.
But I might be wrong here. Like Megan said, I haven't actually seen The Godfather.
So she just makes assumptions.
I feel like people must listen to our podcast and just get increasingly more annoyed with every comment that we make.
Probably.
That's like incorrect.
Oh, yeah. There are tons of them. I guarantee that a lot of people get annoyed. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. We're not perfect.
No, we try though.
Yeah. But I just find that this compounds kind of the crappiness of the idea of this dominant character, because again, they're like, oh, but don't worry, she doesn't let him get away with it. She fights him, but it's fights with big ass quotation marks around it, because
Are we back on 365 days?
no,
here?
I'm just saying in general.
Oh, right, okay.
Like when this happens, like it's just like, oh, I'm putting up a fight, but like not really.
No.
You're not actively looking for, for like a way to get away from this person.
No, and like that's all you would do. Like you would.
Oh my God.
You would like.
Come on.
You would do anything you could to get away from that. Like I can't imagine how terrifying that must be to get kidnapped by someone and then told like I'm locking you away for 1 year.
In any other genre of
and
story,
you must fall in love with me.
In any other genre of novel or a film, this would be a horror movie
horror
or a psychological thriller,
yes.
And this person would actively be trying to get away from the person who kidnapped them, because that is what you would be doing. If you guys have ever seen a movie called Berlin Syndrome, it has a vibe to it that's like this, but it's like if you take all the romance out of it, and it's basically about a woman who is backpacking in Europe. She meets a man, has a one-night stand with him, wakes up the next morning and slowly realizes that she cannot leave his apartment. Yeah. And goes through a very long period of time, and you watch the struggle of this woman trying to get away from him.
Yeah, that's horrible. Over
a period of time. And it's terrifying and bothersome, and in a normal way where the character decisions that are made, you're like, yep, nope, that seems about right to me. That seems about what an actual human being would do, because it's not romance and it's not romantic to be kidnapped by someone.
No, and like the thing is, again, using the example of 365 days, if she had known him, if there was some sort of like attraction and they were playing some sort of game with each other, it would make a lot more sense. Like if they were enemies to lovers, or if they were from like rival families,
like if they already knew each other,
if they knew each other really well,
Just a whole ass stranger.
If you were like, oh yes, that's Massimo, he's an asshole who kidnaps people, like you could understand her behavior a little bit better.
Yeah,
but the fact that she has no idea who he is, and he kidnaps her and tells her, you have 1 year to fall in love with me, terrifying.
And if you don't, I'll let you go. Oh yeah, I'm really gonna believe you about that.
Yeah, like I'm gonna just wait my year out then, like it's crazy.
Like there are scenes in that where, oh my God, the dog.
Ozzy.
But yes, okay, there is a scene in that movie where she literally, after she's decided like she's just not bothering with the fight anymore, she literally calls her mom and is like, I'm fine, I'm over here, I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, and her mom's like, okay, and I'm like, because like, doesn't she go and visit her parents at some point during?
In one of the later movies, she does. Yeah,
but like, is it during the first year? Honestly,
I don't think
I don't
so.
care.
I don't know. It doesn't.
The whole point is
matter.
It's stupid. But I wonder, like, I would throw the question out to the community here, like, does anybody answer anonymously or whatever, just like self-reflection. Do you actually find this sexy or like a turn on in any way? Like, is there anyone out there who's like, yes, this is my jam?
I would like to know, outside of role playing with a consensual partner who you already know as well, does anybody like see this and go, oh God, I can't wait till
so hot.
till I get kidnapped?
Well, that's it. Like, it's like, do we want to be there, or do we just like watching it on screen and it like does something to us that way? Like, maybe I don't know.
I don't know, because but that is, what I would like to know, because those movies I think are totally absurd, and there's nothing sexy about them as far as I'm concerned, with like, especially like how the relationship has begun between the characters. Like, I'm not like, oh, that would be so great. Like, no.
It's just scary.
No. It sounds awful. It sounds like, terrifying, and I hate it.
I could understand, and again, I use 365 days again, but I could understand if she knew that he was Massimo, the sexy son of our rival family, and I'm a good daughter, and I can't let myself feel these things, but now Massimo has kidnapped me, and now I'm feeling things like, fine, like I'm totally on board with this.
I think, you know what, I think I could buy it more, like you said, if she was from like a rival family, I could maybe buy it more.
And she was like genuinely like into him, but like she wasn't letting herself
And then you bring the forbidden love trope into that too.
Like totally fine. Like, yes, I could get on board with that, but it's the way that some of these movies are so like abrupt and like violent in the delivery of the romance that you're just kind of like, okay, but I don't feel like this is romantic anymore. Like, I'm just kind of scared.
Yeah. They're like, oh, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm so uncomfortable. Yeah. Oh boy. It's, oh man. It just, they try to combine, like, they do this with some of like the later 50 Shades of Grey shit too, where like at first, they just have him be like Christian Grey, be like domineering and disgusting, but then later they try to have, I'm so sorry if you guys can hear that, it's the dog with the squeaky toy. It's not your earphones, don't worry about it. Or like your car speaker, don't worry about it.
No, it's lamb chop.
Oh boy, with a squeak. I like, they do that a little bit later where like there are times and scenes where Anna will specifically like fight him about something, but it's not.
What are you on about right now?
In 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh,
but it's not.
Did you say that? Sorry.
Yes, but it's not a fight. It's just like, it's like a 2-second argument, and then she caves to his demands anyway.
Like in 50 Shades of Grey, like I believe that one a little bit more. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I guess he's not like scary.
Well, he didn't physically kidnap her, but the domineering thing with like, here, sign a contract and do all that shit.
Like, I feel like his delivery is like really rude, and also like really scary. Like, if you're a vulnerable young woman and you're like finding yourself feeling feelings that you've never felt for this really sexy man who's got a lot of power, and then he turns around and like abruptly just like drops this bomb on you and is like, if you want to have sex with me, you have to sign this contract.
And
like,
have sex with me in this particular way that I want to have sex.
Like, I think her reaction is pretty like, the fact that she like argues with him on it and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, like, look, at the same time too, that those stories completely like retcon themselves because he says that this is the only way that he does it and then immediately does it a different way.
Yeah.
And they have pretty like normal sex throughout most of it. So
yeah, no, like 50 Shades is pretty problematic.
Yeah,
I can't even defend it.
It's pretty crazy that way.
Yeah.
Just the way that they portray like the idea of it. And you can tell that like, what's her name? E.L. James or whatever, who wrote those stories. She read like 2 Wattpad stories about BDSM and decided that she knew what BDSM was, I think, and was just like, I'm gonna write about it now.
Do you ever wonder if like some of these authors, they like write things, put them out into the world, and like just did not think that things would go this far? Like Anna Todd, who like wrote something on Wattpad, and she was like, yeah, cool, like here you go, world. And like suddenly like movies are being made, and they're like, oh wow, those were like my deepest, darkest fantasies that I just kind of put out
that I just kind of put there anonymously, and now they've become like a whole thing, and I'm making money off of them, I guess. Yeah. I mean, okay, fine. We say that, but like, as we're discovering this year, the world of romance authors can sometimes be pretty fucking crazy.
My
and
God.
This is something that I wanted to talk about. So I don't know if anyone has heard about this, read about this, because I feel like it's been popping up in a lot of news outlets too. Yeah. A few weeks ago, Shireen sends me a very bizarre article from BuzzFeed, of all places as well, whose headline was basically like about a romance novelist who faked her own death. And I was like, what the fuck is this? So I, read the article. I Googled it because I was like, what is this? What's this? What is this? And apparently an author, I don't know if this is this person's actual name, a self-publishing romance novelist by the name of Susan Meachin, supposedly back in 2020, there had been social media posts to indicate that unfortunately she had died by suicide, that she'd taken her own life due to online bullying and a lot of negativity in the community. And, you know, as far as I'm aware, anyway, from everything that I read, there was an outpouring of support and people felt awful about this. Now, fast forward to basically beginning of 2023, and this person comes back online to release a statement that that's not actually the case. And that there was
her own death.
There was a fake death that was all purported online.
Yep.
Apparently there were questions at the time from certain members of the self-publishing community about this, that they were confused by the whole thing when it did happen. The answer provided by her was very flippant, very bizarre. Yeah. And supposedly a lot of this came from pressure from family members and stuff due to, again, online bullying, et cetera, to do something like this. Now,
was she under a student, like a pen name?
I have no idea.
Oh, right, okay.
I don't know. I don't know if her actual name is Susan Meechan or not, but this is the name that's indicated everywhere. I can only assume it's her actual name because I don't see a report of a pen name anywhere. Yeah, and it's unfortunate because a lot of people who were genuinely online friends with this person really took this death hard, but then just this bonkers fucking story of this person faking their own, like, my God, like, this isn't a movie. Like, when was the last time you heard about somebody faking their own fucking death?
I've never, ever heard of this happening.
Yeah.
Like, I would have thought that in this day and age with how the internet is, like, people would have easily been able to, like, locate, like, but then again, like, maybe people just didn't dig that far.
It's also, well, I mean, granted, if an official statement is released by this person's family saying they have, unfortunately, this is what's happened, they have passed away, they took their own life.
Would then
what are you going to do?
Look for the funeral details. Like,
what are you going to do?
Like,
just,
oh man,
I don't believe you.
My author died. I'm so sad.
Yeah, that's it. I don't believe you. Like, no, not at all. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy that all of this happened, but this seems to be, I mean, first of all, it is too bad, and I have seen a lot online that's indicated that a lot of people were very mad about this because also, you know, the self-publishing community already, like, exists in a bit of a stigma because people don't necessarily take them as seriously as folks who have gone through a whole editorial process with, like, an official publishing house, et cetera, et cetera. So that's too bad because it puts a stain on people who are just trying to put their work out there for people to read. You know, and to maybe support themselves doing so. So that is unfortunate. But it also reminded me, when you sent me this, it also reminded me of, oh my gosh, I have to look up a name.
Hold, please.
Okay, yes, I looked this up. Okay, so this also reminded me of a few years ago when I read a little bit of an article basically and some information. Do you remember? So there was a thriller type of novel, very much in the same vein of like Gone Girl, Girl on the Train, all that kind of stuff, called The Woman in the Window.
Yes.
They made a movie on Netflix with Amy Adams, I believe.
And then they made one with, what's her face?
Well, I think that was supposed to be like a mishmash of a whole bunch, right? The woman across the something in the window or whatever the fuck it was. I don't know. The one with Kristen Bell in it. Anyway. So the man who wrote the actual novel, the pen name used is A.J. Finn, who actually wrote the book, but the actual author's name is Dan Mallory.
Okay.
There have been reports, and I remember reading about this when the Netflix film was being produced. There were people in the online community asking folks not to support the idea of this film or give this person any more money because apparently he has, for a number of years, and I've seen like full, you know, articles, full like editorials in the New Yorker and things who have looked into this man's past and have found a lot of just stories that he's fabricated about his own background.
Interesting.
And a lot of misinformation and inconsistencies. I believe that people were quite upset because I believe that he told people at some point or another, he'd made it public that he was suffering from, I forget what particular type of cancer, and it turns out that wasn't true. Wow. And he was undergoing treatment. He had told different people at different times that different parents are living and or dead, and I believe both are still alive. You know, all kinds of sorts of things like that. He's fabricated stories regarding educational background, all sorts of things. So there have just been, so it's really interesting sometimes to it's really interesting sometimes to hear these things where you're just kind of like, wow, man, authors really get caught up in their own little world and their own stories at some point, don't they?
Well, it makes you wonder like how much people actually like lie about themselves and like it never actually gets found out, you know?
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Especially if people aren't in the public eye.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I feel like that would make it easier to get away with things.
For sure. Absolutely. But, yeah. Well, what does everyone think about this?
I would like to know what people think about, like, do you like specific tropes or the ones that you like? Like, look, a lot of us like enemies to lovers, and that's cool, man. Like, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with, like, a love triangle if it's well done, you know, those kinds of things. Basically, any of them can be good if they're not done in a way that, you know, makes me want to throw up.
Yeah, not in a toxic way.
Yeah. And stop romanticizing male trauma. Stop doing it. We don't romanticize female trauma because I'm sure a lot of it would be regarding sexual assault and things, so stories don't do that very often. Exactly. There's nothing romantic about that. But there's also nothing romantic about Christian Grey getting cigarette burns from his mother's shitty boyfriend. Absolutely. You know what I mean?
And
like
his mother.
Yeah, there's nothing romantic about that at all. There's nothing romantic about her dying and him being stuck with her dead body for 3 days or however long it was, you know?
Nor an after when Hardin sees his mother get
be sexually assaulted. You know, yeah, that's it exactly. Cool. There's nothing romantic about that. Nothing about that should be romanticized. It should be, if it's going to be used as a plot device, it should be treated as seriously as it is, as the subject matter is, and treated in the correct way.
Correct. Yep.
Yes. So, what do you guys think of all of these tropes? What do you like? What do you hate? Have you ever noticed anything like what we've been yammering on about today?
We sure have been yammering.
I know. I'm sorry, guys. You can let us know about that over on Instagram at fullybookedca. You can also check out our Facebook group that we have at facebook.com/groups/book-was-way-better. And if you are still with us and are still listening to us complaining again, God, good for you. I hope you are. Please feel free to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you are listening, because it really helps us get the show out in front of more people. But until next week, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.